right, hello and welcome to another Expert Insight interview. My name is John Golden from Sales Pop, online sales magazine and Pipeliner CRM, joining you as usual from San Diego. And today I'm delighted to be joined from the other side of the country, down in beautiful Fort Lauderdale in Florida, Luke Lunkenheimer. How are you doing, Luke?
I'm good, John. How are you?
Yeah, doing great, doing great. And Luke is a highly successful entrepreneur and sales expert, known for developing the paid to persuade method, which emphasizes deeply understanding customer needs to drive sales success. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Is we're going to talk about the paid to persuade method, how deep customer understanding drives real results. And I guess that's a good place to start. Luke, is when you say deep customer understanding, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? What's the difference between deep customer understanding and superficial understanding?
And normal customer understanding?
Yeah, yeah.
That's a good question, John. I love that you lead with that question because it affords me the opportunity to say what that really means. It's
Mm,
human understanding. I believe that salespeople, and I speak from personal experience, the experience of training my employees, and then also as we've built this company, training hundreds and thousands of, not hundreds of thousands, let's be realistic, hundreds
mm,
and thousands of salespeople. We're not quite there yet, but on the fact that their customers are human beings. And we exercise something called perspective over perception. And that just basically is the understanding that this person has fears. They have, realistic, intrinsic fears and desires and all the normal stuff that we as human beings have. So we find that salespeople, tend to put on a game face when they talk to a customer. They become a salesperson. They sometimes take on a different vocal cadence. They speak
mm.
outside their normal vocabulary or verbiage, and it really creates an inauthentic experience that they have no idea from the outset is putting, pinning the meter against them from the beginning of the conversation. So we say deep understanding of the customer. We just mean we're going to help you understand yourself better. We're going to help you understand how you interact with people better, and we're going to help you understand how you should be interacting with your customer.
Yeah, no, I think that's great, Luke. Because one of the things I think we overlook sometimes, and it's a lot of it's our fault, and even the way we refer to things, like we refer to people as prospects or leads or whatever, instead of people, right? And we also overlook sometimes that, especially in a B2B sales environment, right? In a B2C, right? If I go off now to Best Buy and buy the latest super duper duper TV and bring it home, what's the downside on that? Is my wife's going to be mad at me because we should have spent the money somewhere else. But it's containable, and I know it's coming. But in a B2B environment, when you make a purchasing decision, it can be career enhancing, it can be career limiting, but there's a lot of personal emotion wrapped up in that. And that's the thing I think we often overlook.
I tend to agree. I mean, I think that there's a lot of things we overlook, and I think there's things we overdo more than anything. I
Hmm.
think sometimes we take a little bit too much of our personal baggage into a conversation. Salespeople tend to usually find themselves having missteps around the things that are their pain points. They don't realize what they project onto a customer. When you can just have a authentic conversation, I mean, you still have to be a salesperson, but I guess
Hmm.
the frame of what I'm saying, John, is that if you enter the conversation as one human being talking to another versus a salesperson talking to a client or
Hmm.
a prospect, is
Hmm.
you put it when you put a tag on them. People get much better when they get confident. We have something in P2P, paid to persuade, called the three
Hmm.
C's, and it's kind of our core values, which is content, confidence, and cadence. Content meaning that if you don't have a framework by which you stick to every time you speak to a customer, if you're just kind of cold navigating the
Yeah.
conversation, saying, well, I'm a skilled salesperson, I'm experienced, I'm going to find a few key indicators out and navigate my way through this sale, you have no idea how ineffective you are, in full scope, from standing back and taking a look at the big picture. So you have to have a framework to adhere to that keeps you consistent and doing the same thing every time. Otherwise, trying to measure your results is really an effort and futility. So not to say that P2P is the one end all be all, but we're certainly very confident in our human based framework and the fact that we have a process of compassionate interrogation that aligns us with the customer from the outside of the conversation and eliminates objections, again, from the outside of the conversation. The confidence being that that's what we optimize for when we train
Yeah.
salespeople. I'm not optimizing for a script, make sure you can say this way. I'm not optimizing for any particular outcome other than obviously a close. What I'm
Mhm.
optimizing for is the confidence, the intrinsic confidence of the human being that I'm speaking to. Because when they come to the conversation authentically confident, they can bring their knowledge forward with confidence, and it's very effective. And the customer receives it four times better than they would if the person was hesitant or seemed like they were scripted. And of course,
Mhm.
cadence. there's statistics after statistic about, your consistency and
Yep.
your practice and
Sure.
role playing and so on and so forth. So, that's really kind of our principles.
Yeah, no, I love that, but and especially the piece you said there about authenticity and confidence, because sometimes, as you said, people will come and they just talk a lot and try to sound confident, and all you do is kind of turn the other person off. But the other interesting thing is, I think if you're authentic and you're honest about, I ran a global sales consultancy, Hotway, a number of years back, and we worked with companies big and small, some big global organizations on spin selling and sales performance improvement. And sometimes they would say, now we don't call our people salespeople. They are called, and they'd have some bizarre name. And I'd say, that's fine, we can do that. And I'd say, but I just want to say one thing. You're a prospect slash customer. They know you're a salesperson. So call yourself whatever you
Mhm.
want. They know you're a salesperson. Wouldn't it be better if you just embraced being a salesperson, but a salesperson in the way, as you said, a confident, somebody who's authentic and is going to come and actually share knowledge and insight with you and be proud about what they're doing and and really believe that they can help you.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that one of the biggest downfalls that we experience right now is how quickly information is shared, and I'm referring to
Mhm.
social media.
Yep.
I can't tell you how many people I see in sales that have a Bible of 60-second clips that they go to in their Instagram reels, and that's their framework. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And it just creates this adversarial relationship. When you go into your conversation going, okay, I've got my magazine and it's full of bullets, and I know they're all in order, and I'm going to
Mhm.
fire them off when ready. And when I hear certain things from my customer, I'm going to fire back with this. It
Yeah.
just again pushes the inauthenticity factor. And I don't think people truly understand how aware a customer is of inauthentic conversation. We have a natural BS meter in our head
Yeah.
with our mirror neurons and our empathy center. We don't have to consciously know that we feel like we're being BS'd, for lack of better
Yeah.
term. We can feel it, right? And the customer doesn't have to even they're not even cognizant a lot of the time. They just know something's off. They give you a very smokescreen-esque objection, like, I want to think about it. I want to
Mhm.
talk to my wife, one of these things that we know really isn't a real, a true objection. And
Yep.
it's because something just felt off. And one of the biggest things we find with salespeople, and that we exercise and we show live in training and classroom training, is that I'll have small talk with a salesperson, and let's use Ricky as exhibit A. Hey,
Mm.
Ricky, how you doing? Oh, I'm good, sir. Okay, what do you like to do? I like to snowboard. I like to go to the movies with my girlfriend. Okay, man, and what's the most expensive thing you ever bought in your life? Oh, my family's into equestrian, we're equestrians. We bought a big gelding one time. It was really expensive. Okay, cool, man. All right, give me your pitch. Well, all right, Luke, welcome to
Yeah.
CNY Drives. My name's Ricky. And it's like, where's the guy I was just talking to? You don't understand. They're not even aware that when they're talking to their customer, they're speaking in their normal vocal cadence. They're
Mhm.
talking the way they normally talk. And then when they shift into their script or their pitch, something changed, and the customer goes, "Oh, here we are. We're right
Yep.
back to square one. I
Yeah.
thought we were making progress, and we're not." And the more aware we are of that factor as a salesperson, we can become much more effective.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think the other thing, Luke, is you're going back to what you were saying about your three C's and the confidence and the cadence. Absolutely, the research is out there. Is that if you have a
Mm.
sales process, I mean, ZS Associates, I think Deloitte or somebody else did, but they basically said if you have a sales process well defined, and within the sales process, the activities within each stage are well defined, rigorously enforced, and constantly, reevaluated, those are the top performing sales organizations. So to your point, is cadence is so important, and it's something that oftentimes is overlooked. um
Yeah, John,
and
just to augment
yeah,
your, oh,
please do.
sorry. There's a
Go
there's
ahead.
a little delay. I apologize. But I was in Dallas giving a talk to Apex entrepreneurs, Ryan Stewman's people, and I showed three slides, and there were two statistics from Salesforce and one from HubSpot, which we all know are relatively
Mhm.
heavyweight players. So
Sure.
the first statistic, and forgive me, give me a 5% negligence on the number one way or the other, I don't have it memorized, but
Yeah.
it was in reference to confidence. Confident salespeople who are confident in their abilities and in their knowledge are 67% more effective than their peers who are not.
Mhm.
As far as the content, the framework, having a structured framework, went into the 70s, and then the cadence intensive practice, people who daily role play and daily practice with their peers, it was like 93 or 94% more, 93% of the sample were more effective than their counterparts who didn't have daily practice and role playing. So I don't know how you refute those numbers.
No, I 100%. And just think about it, Luke. What other things in life would you do without practicing, right? I mean, you normally just wouldn't turn up and try something, right? But your job that puts bread on the table, you don't practice it, you don't role play, you don't, you don't. I mean, you're not fine tuning, always thinking, how can I improve these things? That's the part I don't understand anybody who's not doing that.
Well, brother, I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I want to bring an unfortunate truth to you that I had to discover upon myself here recently, and that is, you have businesses or have had businesses, or I'm not familiar with where you're at present day, but you're obviously still tilling the soil with your podcast and everything that you guys are doing over at Pipeliner, and you're a sample of individuals who are the minority. Okay, myself, and not to put either one of us on a pedestal, but
Mhm,
obviously we're pushing a little harder than the average bear. If you were to, and this is obvious when it comes to our B2C and B2B customers.
mhm,
B2B, we can't get, we're one of the only, as far as I know, the only, but I'll say one of the only because I haven't perused the world.
mhm,
But stateside, we're one of the only companies that actually guarantees a monetary result. We will get you X percentage more sales. Now that number in B2B is 10%. We will come into your sales floor. If you're not currently under a training process, we'll guarantee you 10%. B2C, we guarantee 20%. And the
mhm,
reason for that is the obvious thing, which is in B2B, we're dealing with sales teams. It's their job. It's delegated to them by their employer. It's required. It's no fun. It's this thing I got to do when I go to work. When you have an individual who's motivated, who's willing to spend several $1,000s to augment their abilities and to progress as a human being,
mhm,
that individual I can guarantee a better result out of because they're going to push harder and work harder. So we say, and I used to say, I chuckle because I used to say to my wife, how the heck, why wouldn't somebody just get up every day? The statistics are there. Well, the statistics are also there that if you don't flip people off when you're driving your car, you're less likely to get shot, but people still do that, right? So
yeah,
we're still human beings, and practice is awkward. Role playing is uncomfortable, which is another one of our kind of monikers in Paid to Persuade, which is get comfortable being uncomfortable. It's one of the second modules when you enter our sales training. And it's like, listen, man, you're going to have to embrace things that make you feel awkward. And one of them is looking at somebody who you have coffee with every day and you talk sales shop after you miss that one deal and you're
mhm,
BSing back and forth and commiserating about the customer. You got to stop, put your game face on. We have to role play. You have to tell me where I've done wrong. I have to tell you where you've done wrong. And it's awkward. So I think if
mhm,
people can overcome and just understand the task at hand is to get better, it
yeah,
directly affects my wallet. My wallet affects my life and my freedom. This is important. Get over it, swallow the lump, and practice. But
yeah.
it's something that some people find very difficult.
Yeah, and look, the other part of that is, I mean, sometimes it's even like the most tenured salespeople, because let's be honest. When we've been doing anything for a long time, yeah, we start to get a little complacent. We maybe take some shortcuts. I don't need to do that anymore. I always liken it to, like, I do martial arts and stuff, and sometimes our master comes in and just says, "Well, we're going to do footwork right now." And suddenly you're back to doing basic footwork, right? It's something you've done thousands and thousands and thousands of times, and you've done it for.
Hmm.
And he'll always find ways of tweaking, or maybe a bad habit that you've gotten into that you didn't even notice. You notice, oh, I'm not doing this the way I used to. And I feel that way about sales, and that's why I think sometimes, as I said, one of the places to start is to go and look at, are you executing on all of the fundamentals, or are you perhaps skipping over some of them, and maybe are you making a few assumptions?
I couldn't agree with you more. And I don't mean to sound redundant here. It's about the
Yeah.
third time I've said that, but you bring up some very valid points, which is exactly why we say content,
Mhm.
confidence, and cadence, because the content is the framework. You must stick to it. And that includes your fundamentals. That's
Mhm.
another piece, and I hate to throw out all these cute little acronyms, but we have something that we call flow selling, fundamental, logical, and obvious. Fundamental meaning you got to work on your footwork,
Mhm.
to go off of what you said.
Yeah.
You got to work on your basics, your push-ups, your pull-ups, your sit-ups. As far as sales would be concerned, you have to have your basics down. And I think, John, Lack of humility is a cancer that runs
Mm,
rampant in a sales floor, right? You get those numbers, you get the name on the board. I came from the car business a long time ago, and
right,
that
right.
glass wall with the hash marks on it, man, if you rock that board for 3, 4 months in a row, you were a deity in that place, never to be bothered again. And there's something I call the salesman's bell curve, or salesperson's bell curve. And that is, you get in, you get trained, you get better, you get good, you get confident, you start rocking, you make big money, you get cocky, you lose humility, you start to lose fundamentals, you fall back down, and you end up right where you were within units, right, of where you were at the outset. And people, then it's the leads, right? It's like a scene out of
Yeah,
Glengarry Glen Ross. The leads stink. And then it's,
yeah.
well, the boss is playing baby favorites with the new guy. And it's every excuse in the world except for hold up the mirror, ask myself, am I doing exactly what I was told to do? Am I doing
Mhm.
what I know is right? And am I trying each day to progress? And am I using my cadence of practice? And I think you'll find the people on the backside of the bell curve can never answer all four of those questions. Yes, rarely can they answer one. So, lack of humility, I think if people can just remain humble and realize that the only way that they stay top tier is if they behave like a Tom Brady. This guy,
Yeah.
Kobe Bryant and Tom Brady are two shining examples of that mindset. And I think if people could just understand that if the multimillionaire goats of the sports exercise that same mindset, then it might be something good for you to do as well.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. I mean, I read that about Kobe. He used to turn up like first in the gym, like 5 in the morning, something ridiculous, practicing. And people assumed, okay, probably practicing trick shots, this, that, and the other. Yeah, he's doing high school drills, doing the
Yep.
drills he learned in high school.
Mhm. And that's why he just there's something that we in P2P we call staying reflexive, right? And in
Mhm.
our training, we talk about we compare it to a fighter. You watched just
Yeah,
recently, you had Jake Paul and Mike Tyson, which was one
yeah,
heck of a goof. But if you
yeah,
watched either
yeah.
one of those fighters or any other good fighter, right? And not to take anything from those guys, but a good solid fight, what are they doing before they step out of that locker room? Their trainer has pads, they're
Mhm.
pat,
Yeah.
pat, swing, swing, pat, pat, and they're staying reflexive because when they enter that ring, they want their last movement to be that of whatever they're going to be doing to execute inside the ring. And sales is the exact same way.
Yeah, and I love you brought that up actually. And that's a great analogy too. I love the analogy of the fighter in the room because yeah, they're warming up, they're doing pad work, they're getting in the zone, all of that. One of the things that I often find with some salespeople, especially if they've been around a while, is you still like say, okay, you have a lot of meetings on your calendar. Yeah. Um, where's where have you set aside the prep work? The prep time? Where's the half hour, 20 minutes or whatever before that call to do the pad work, right? To get yourself in the zone. Sometimes we
Mhm.
just start to think, oh, we just bounce from, I'm so busy, I'm just going to bounce from meeting to meeting. And I'm just going to
Mhm.
go in, I'll quickly read the notes and I'm going to go in. That's where you get knocked out in the first round.
That's 100% right, brother. And at the end of the day, nobody's that good. And when I say nobody's that good, do I mean that there's not the slayers of sales? And I put
Sure.
myself, and I'm sure you put yourself in that category where the faucet's always warm and we can go hot at any minute, right? And kind of guys, just throw me a phone as it's ringing. Don't tell me what's even going on. Just tell me what the product is, and I get a rise off of doing that. But I can't sit here and look you in the eyes and tell you that I'm going to be at maximum efficacy behaving that way. No, if it's
Mhm.
an important deal, I'm going to do the
Yeah.
research. I'm going to be warm with the client. I'm going to have some background on them, and I'm already going to have material emailed to them. So when they say, would you mind emailing me something? It's sure, do me a favor, open your email. There it is. So what questions
Yeah.
did you have? Right. So once again, we are aligned in our thinking, sir.
Yeah. And then just in the last few minutes here, Luke, if you had one piece of advice for salespeople going into 2025, particularly maybe those salespeople who've struggled a little this year and need a boost, what would your one piece of advice be?
Yeah, can I give two? Because I got
Yeah, yeah,
two
yeah.
really
Give three
important
if you
ones.
want. Right?
Okay, so the first thing is you have to recognize change, right? And I just gave a presentation on this, talking about late 1800s into the early 1900s with overzealous, over promising in the marketing, and then a correction in legislation, consumer sentiment changing, and then I just showed these business cycles where there
Mhm.
was hyperbolic claims, unrealistic exaggerations in the marketing efforts, which led to, upset consumers, which led to correction in the marketplace, which led to companies capitalizing off of that with new brand messages and new brand identities. And I think that we are poised and we're in that correction right now. There's been a lot of hyperbolic marketing. There's been a lot of nonsense. There's been,
Yeah.
with the advent of social media, the FCC cannot keep up. You can't task, they don't have 5 million agents. You can't task each person to each individual social media account. So you can log into Meta and you can advertise something and call it something. And the rank and file, if they believe it, they're going to bite and you're going to sell them something. And there's really no way to combat that. So now what's happened is the consumers, the marketplace is really reeled back. They're very aware, they're very hesitant, and they're right back to walking in the door or getting on the call with their fists up. So you must be aware of that as a salesperson. So move into 2025 understanding that your customer's concerned. They're expecting lack of authenticity. So the best thing for you to do is know your product well. And if a customer asks you, hey, would you like, I'll give a car business example just because it's very familiar to me. I own 3 car dealerships. When someone says to you, I tell my salespeople, if someone said, hey, would you buy that truck? If you wouldn't buy that truck, say no, I wouldn't buy that truck. But then explain why, and then explain to them why they should buy that truck. Because the salesperson goes, oh my God, hell yeah, I'd buy that thing. That's a great truck. That again, you break the authenticity barrier, vocal cadence changes, and your customer senses that, right? The other thing I would say, man, is so that's point number one. Be aware of what the marketplace is doing. If you're going to be in sales and you're going to combat the consumer, at least know what's going on, right? Know the lay of the land. And that's where we're at right now as a marketplace. And also with the incoming administration, there's a lot of things to be aware of there. So as far as the US is concerned. Now, as far as you as a salesperson, from the outset of your career that you're going to receive objections. You know that you're going to receive what we call the triple threat: time, money, third party. These things are coming. So if you want to know if there's a true objection at the end of your sales, what do we do as salespeople? We give our offering, and then at the end, we start milling through the objections, right? And I got to talk to my wife. And then we do our verbiage, we word track ourselves through it and to find out what the real objection is so we can actually work on it and chisel it down, right? So why don't we eliminate time, money, and third party at the outset of the conversation? And in P2P, what we focus on is what we call a non-objectionable close, meaning the only thing your customer can object to, if you get trained by our company, is product. And if you know your product and you know your consumer, then that's not a problem. But you're never going to get time, you're never going to get money, you're never going to get third party, because with the framework that we use, we give you the way to solve for all of that at the outset of the conversation. So whether or not they engage with our company, they do it on their own, or they get trained somewhere else, get rid of the triple threat at the outset of the call. Make sure that you know what's going on with their time frame. Is it a good time? Do they have enough time? Is there something that's seasonal with what they do? Money. Do they qualify? Do they have the money? Is now the right time? Do they credit qualify? Does their financing about just anything to do with the money? And then third party, man, get the CFO on the phone, eliminate the wife. Because what salespeople don't understand, and this is an incredible point that I make, and people just have this mind blow moment where they just go, my God, that's so true. And it's that if you have no real reason to speak to your wife or your spouse or your business partner, if I ask you before we even talk product, price, anything like that, if there's a necessity for involvement there, your guard isn't up yet. You're not triggered. So no, I can make the decision on my own. Okay, and then we move on. At the end of the conversation, that can't rear its head. It's just you can't throw that flag as a ref because you eliminated it at the outset of the conversation. So you can do this with all three of what we call the triple threat, which is time, money, and third party. But as a general overarching theme, the objections that you deal with every single day, they're coming. Get rid of them at the beginning of the conversation. And if you have a no deal, discover it at the outset. And there's ways that, you get people say, well, if I get them to say no at the beginning of the conversation, I blew my call. And there's framework around that. And that's not the reality, but we certainly don't have the hour to go through it. So my donations would be be aware of the marketplace and eliminate your triple threat at the outset of the conversation.
Yeah, no, I think those are great, and I love the eliminate the triple threat. Easy for me to say, and the objections at the beginning, because a lot of times people go through the sales call like, hoping against hope that those objections aren't going to come up. So they're still in your mind. They're occupying your brain during this whole process because you're
Yes.
waiting for them, as opposed to, as you said, having them out of the way. So this has been fantastic. All of Luke's information will be below this video. But before we go, please do tell people a little bit more about you and Paid to Persuade.
Sure, brother. I mean, we train businesses, we train teams of salespeople, we train individuals. Paidtopersuade.com is our website. I strongly encourage people. Is it okay to plug social media?
Yeah, of course, of course.
I
We'll have
really
it all
encourage
down
you
here
guys.
too. So yeah.
Okay,
So
I
please
appreciate that.
plug
And it's
away.
just it's in down below at Luke Blanc on all the major socials, and we give tidbits of our training. They're teasers, but it's real true
Mhm.
value. We don't just give half the information and say come back later for the rest or pay me for the rest. We give good, actionable, executable sales information every single day on those socials. So if it's nothing more than just some free content and free value, I strongly encourage them. But I am a used car salesperson turned salesperson of many products and services, turned back into used car dealer, and then realized I wasn't really that good of a car dealer. I was just really good at training salespeople. So I went on to do what I love. That's what brings me here today.
Fantastic. Well, listen, it comes through. It comes through in your in when you talk about your training and your methodology and everything. The passion is there. So I encourage you, go check it out. Check the links below. Go check out Luke and what he does. So thanks again, Luke. Thank you for watching, listening. See you all again very soon. Thank you.
Thanks, John.